後卒業時半や腹見た辞書言語保育同一細工役者理士式具意空空意識式即税空空即税式重装病式薬部尿税者理士税証拠総務省副副上部増減税国中部式部創業式無限意味税式無式証拠未足無限界内し無意識外無明薬無明人内し無老死薬無老死
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me is my good brother here in the temple, coming to us from the Storied Illumination when he's not doing his tribunal, the one and only good brother Monarch.
Good to be back after missing last week for my PC frying out on me.
Yeah, that was an interesting day. So,
That was some bad timing.
after doing a bit of shuffling about and adding the schedule for next season, we are back once again continuing our look at Titan Effects Declassified Edition. And when it comes to this one, the main focus we're going to have this week is covering the gear and the hacking end of things. A good chunk of the gear part we're going to be skipping. The hacking part is where things are going to get interesting because, as I've mentioned before, hacking in systems that have it tends to have a bad run of luck. Especially in cases where it's over-designed, I guess is the best way to put it. But
I at least see where the over-design comes from, because you don't want the hacking to be just some simple, quick action and move on for the most part. But they end up focusing so much on it, it becomes a single-player game for a while, and no one wants that.
It becomes a duet.
TTRPG. Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this before. Every time I bring this up, somebody goes, "Well, just have more than one hacker." That's not how people build their parties, and you know it.
Actually, the best workaround of that I've heard is at the beginning of the game, you kind of have to decide, look, we're just not going to have hackers. At most, we might have an NPC that we have to protect while hacking.
Yep, and hello there, Piano. I see you in the chat. Hope you are doing well.
But yeah, that's kind of a... I see why you would do that, but you're playing a Cyberpunk game. You kind of want some hacking going on.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't Cyberpunk, but
Now,
we do have hacking.
in recent years, the approach has been taken of having hacking be an alternate kind of attack, for lack of a better term, which I think is a nice middle ground. And attacking isn't the right word, but I think you get where I'm going with that.
Yes.
I'll probably end up going into that in a bit more detail if I ever revisit Vault or Subversion in the future, which I have a feeling I will. Anyway, we start with gear. Operatives can't solve every situation with their powers, so to help them fulfill their missions, the Spear provides its agents with the best weapons available and state-of-the-art equipment. In this chapter, you'll find rules about gear management and a list of new weapons and equipment. You can also use some modern gear and weapons found in the Savage Worlds book, see gear conversion for the cost chart, because normal Savage Worlds uses dollar amount for its currency. Titan Effect uses equipment points, and we have a nice little sidebar going into why. Titan Effect uses equipment points instead of regular money because the Spear provides everything the characters need. As a result, each operative receives enough money to cover their expenses and live in a good apartment. And we have the money rule. For GMs who prefer money instead of EP, players can get $1,000 to start and $5,500 at each rank. EP conversion is 1 EP per $100, so if something costs 2 EP buying it outside of Spear, it would cost $200. Don't forget that the GM may decide to adjust this cost based on availability. If I'm being honest, I actually prefer the idea of equipment points rather than doing a monetary cost. One, because it fits this kind of game, and two,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to abstract than using straight dollar amounts, because that brings in the realism question, and that brings in a whole host of other questions, which I am not going to answer because I'm not an economist.
Yeah, if you have a real money system, it's a weird mix between, okay, how are we going to like justify this cost, like in terms of lore and in terms of gameplay balance.
It's a little
Like,
bit.
I believe the
easier
game
in
was called Prophecy.
Yeah. It's.
I might have the game system wrong, but
it's a little
worked
bit
out.
Good.
Oh god.
I was gonna say it's a little bit easier in fantasy games because unless you're trying to go for that level of realism,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna raise a fuss if the amount of GP that something costs is a little bit off.
But yeah, with the game I was playing one time, I believe it was Prophecy, I might be wrong, but I just sat down because immediately the numbers seemed wrong. I'm like, if you just made shoes in this world, you would be the richest man alive selling them at these prices. It was ridiculous.
I don't know. Have you seen how much Jordans cost these days?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you have a point.
Yeah.
But yes, for a game like this, the equipment point setup makes way more sense, and I'm glad they went with it.
Mm-hmm. But as a general rule, operatives receive 10 equipment points to spend on equipment for their default loadout at character creation. You get every rank above novice, you get 5 more points. So veterans who are 2 ranks above that are going to get 20 equipment points. This is meant to reflect their standing in the agency and the difficulty of missions you take on. Now, if you're taking high-ranked missions, you're going to want more than just a pistol. You know, if you're doing some B&E operation to disrupt something where you know Therianthropes are going to be, I'd imagine you want more than just a sidearm. Especially if you know that you're going to be getting into a fight, you probably want something to, you know, actually do damage. Operatives can return and upgrade their default loadout with the quartermaster of their unit between each mission to upgrade or swap gear to better suit their next assignment. GMs can also allow minor substitutions for specific mission needs during the session. Which makes sense. Having you be locked into equipment is not something that would be a good idea when you're going to be general purpose operatives. And what counts as special ops can vary quite a bit. But there's also a note that the operatives can switch their P226 for any other handgun that costs the same EP, or pay the difference if the EP is higher. And we have a nice little image of a encrypted smartphone. It looks like the kind of smartphone that you would find in those Raspberry Pi conventions.
Yeah.
But then we have personal equipment, which is going to be pretty standard material.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see too much of a need to go through each one of these individual items.
Mm-hmm.
But just as a quick random selection, you've got audio video bug, hacking upgrade, night vision goggles, restraints, tactical webbing.
Mm-hmm.
Anything along these kind of lines are listed here under the personal equipment.
Yep. And we have a nice little chart to track the weight and EP cost.
Along with a quick note about them.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them do say see description because there's no way you're going to have just a little note. But it's nice to have them there for the ones that need it.
Yeah. So you know what's one video game that I'd probably be cribbing notes from as far as getting ideas for personal equipment? Siege. I'm not gonna play it.
I never played it.
I'm not gonna play it, but you look at some of the gadgetry in that game, and I go, how would that not fit?
But yeah, we got pretty much the same setup for toolkits.
Mhm.
Just a quick list.
Yeah, give me a second because my yeah, there we go. And most of the toolkits have a weight of 5 and an EP of 1, which, given the size of most kits, is certainly fitting. I mean, I think we've all had to use a first aid kit at least once in our life. Those things aren't that heavy. And then we have a bit on armor, going from things like ballistic stuff to a cloaking suit, which you should stay away from electricity attacks if you're in that thing. The stealth suit, which you see a variant of here. This is the armored variant. And if I'm being honest, the stealth suit, in all but name, to a certain extent the armored stealth suit, it's the sneaking suit in Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah. Now, here's a question, since this hadn't come up earlier, and I think this is probably going to be something that would be in core Savage Worlds. Armor in this game, are we talking like an AC bonus kind of armor, or are we talking a damage soaking kind? I'm unsure how that works in Savage Worlds.
Yeah. Just so I'm not talking out of my ass, let me grab the Suede book. I know that acronym sounds cringy, but that's what it's been called, so we're sticking to that. So let's see.
Whatever happened to the great acronyms like FACE-RIP?
You got taken over by the Grogs. That's what fucking happened.
Yeah.
By the way, fuck the Grogs. So, let me see. Armor. Let's just do a little search. Okay, on page 69. Nice. So, armor is written in parentheses next to a character's toughness. This means for example, 11 then parentheses 2. This means 2 points on a character's 11 toughness comes from armor. An armor-piercing attack can bypass those 2 points, but not the other 9.
So we're looking at more of a damage soak over than an AC bonus.
And just to remind when it comes to toughness, it is your damage threshold. A damage roll has to meet or exceed your toughness in order to cause harm. So, if you've got toughness 9, then a damage roll would need to roll 9 or higher in order to do harm. And keep in mind that Savage Worlds operates on a wound system, not an HP system. So as a result of that, it's more about if you take 3 hits, then you're out. And hello there, Griffin Hart. Tonight we are going through the gear and hacking systems of Titan Effect Declassified Edition. I just had to pull up my copy of Savage Worlds Adventure Edition to reference a couple things.
Since this is a kind of supplemental material to Savage Worlds.
Mm-hmm. And I do find it amusing that one of these suits that we have is the wingsuit, since, well, we have wingsuits in the real world.
Yeah.
And then we have a nice little chart for armor. I do find it amusing that in order to use the highest armor, you need a D8 in strength. Which certainly would make sense. I mean, have you ever had to wear full armor?
I've worn a steel half plate. It gets weighty.
I've worn full plates in August.
Yeah, it gets weighty.
I think I lost 2 pounds just from all the sweating I was doing. By the time I was out, I just grabbed the nearest bucket full of water and just dumped it on my head. But obviously, beyond that, you have weight. Which, did we cover weight last time? Like, as far as the threshold for weight? I feel like we didn't.
I don't think that came up.
So
I imagine it's going to be the default of whatever it was in Savage Worlds, because I wouldn't see a reason to change it here.
it's essentially encumbrance. Your strength die determines what your weight, your maximum encumbrance is before you start taking penalties. And the main penalty that it takes is that you're encumbered and take 2 away from your pace, as well as running rolls, agility, and any linked skills, as well as vigor rolls made to reduce fatigue. So strength D4, 20 pounds, D6, 40 pounds, D8, 60 pounds, D10, 80 pounds, D12, 100 pounds, and each +1 past D12 an additional 20 pounds. So that's how the weight system is going to work there. So even at low strength, there's still a decent range that you can go with. But if you're getting like D8 strength, you're going to be carrying a lot more stuff, including all of your guns and ammo. And yeah, that sounds like so much fun. I could just throw up. Somehow I didn't. I think because I was too stubborn to lose my lunch. Because I had a nice lunch that day. I'm not losing that. But
This means you can taste again. It's fine.
oh, fuck off. But obviously, then we have weapons. These are in addition to any modern weapons from Savage Worlds, and there's a gear conversion chart for that, because the weapons in Savage Worlds are going to be in the dollar amounts, and this game isn't using that, as we mentioned before. There are 2 tags to consider. One of them is concealable. If something's concealable, then -2 to notice rolls to detect it. And suppressed. So any firearm with a suppressor. Not a silencer, a suppressor. I know that's getting a bit pedantic, but I will die on that hill. Except I won't, because I'm not Ben K. I will just take out anyone who tries to charge the hill. But suppressed weapons do not provide any bonuses to concealment or damage, but notice checks to hear the shot or spot the shooter's position are at -4. And suppressors are quieter, but they're nowhere near as quiet as Hollywood likes to make people think. But then we have a short list of new weapons. I do like that Accuracy International is brought up. You know, the guys who were 3 guys in a shed who weren't supposed to be 3 guys in a shed. It was just 3 guys who built a sniper rifle and then said, "Hey, let's submit this to the British rifle trials. We're not going to win." They did. And then the requisition officer wanted to inspect what they're doing, so they rented out a shop to make it look like they were a legit operation. and then said to him, "Yeah, this was just a formality. We just wanted to make sure you guys weren't 3 guys in a shed." I mean, to their credit, they made a good rifle. There's a reason why it won the trials, but it's just funny. Let's see, we have the AKS-74U, which is described as a shortened version of the AK-74. Described as a bastard child between a submachine gun and an assault rifle. I do like that we have equivalents, because obviously several of the weapons that are in this don't exactly exist. but are hypotheticals. So it's good that those are put in.
Yeah.
So including things like the Auto Assault 12, which is just their variant of a Saiga 12, which is basically, we want an AK, but we want it in 12 gauge, so we can have it. So we can have AK but shotgun. Obviously, some don't have equivalents like the Benelli M4 because, well, we have that.
It is a very nice list of different weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're not going to go over each individual one. I'm not seeing any that kind of stand out as needing a deeper look, but I like the variety here.
Yeah. And there's a few entries that I appreciate that they're here. I kind of wish the G11 was in here just so that I could make the joke about Kraut space magic. Because seriously, have you seen that thing? That thing is fucking some sort of gunsmithing witchcraft. But we do have a brief selection of melee weapons, as well as thrown and more primitive ranged weapons, and the full-on firearms that we've shown. I do find it funny that the Deagle has armor piercing in this, which I suppose, I mean, it's just it's a 50 cal pistol form. But you know, each one has their range, their damage, their rate of fire, which I'm gonna need to grab the core book for that as well. So rate of fire. This is the number of shots that may be fired by this weapon in a single action. And then I have to go to page 93. For weapons with a rate of fire of 2 or higher, declare how many shots you're putting into each possible target. Then roll that number of shooting dice and assign them in whatever order you like to the targets you declared. A rate of fire higher than 1 is an abstract value, which we already figured that out. Though they do have a bullets per rate of fire chart. Though what I do appreciate is there isn't that setup of, oh, you take increasing penalties for each shot after the first. Although, actually, no, I take that back because I forgot about recoil. Firing more than one shot in one action from a weapon subtracts 2 from your shooting rolls. But there isn't anything that says that it stacks. So it's not like the multi-action penalty you see in say Pathfinder, for instance. You know, that rule of -5 that it loves to do so much.
Yeah.
Which I was never the biggest fan of. But moving onward, we have our firearms in several flavors: pistols, submachine guns, shotguns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, machine guns, and launchers, as well as different types of explosives. And you know that somebody's probably going to use frag grenades like they're flashbangs to breach a room. Because, technically speaking, if there's no survivors, it's still a successful stealth mission.
Being dead, I guess you could say, is a form of being stunned. Just longer duration.
But then we also have different types of ammo and the upgrades that you can put on them. Though it's mostly armor piercing upgrades when it comes to bullets. Though some of them don't have upgrades, and I'd probably house rule it. They do, like with shotgun ammo, I'd probably house rule in things like Dragon's Breath.
Yeah.
You know, add a little magnesium so you've got burning shots. Though with arrows you have things like barbed, which is gonna do more damage to unarmored targets, and high explosive. Although,
Yeah, just quick reminder for everyone. It does seem like this might be a slightly small list compared to what you might have expected, but do remember, this is all in addition to everything in the core Savage Rules game that would make sense to also have in this game.
and also remember that this kind of stuff is sharing space with the powers you have as a spear agent.
Yes.
But after
So
that,
I'm actually entirely fine with the size of the equipment list we've been given here.
Yeah. But after that, we have weapon accessories, which are what you might expect. You've got stuff for barrels, stuff for frames, mag, sight, and attachment. You play any modern FPS in the last 20 years, and a lot of this is going to sound familiar to you. The accessories aren't going to be as extensive, and you're not going to see one of those infamously terrible Yosho or Sam Claymore builds. God help us if somebody actually tried that. Like, I think you've probably seen some of them when I've shared the video of some of the cursed editions of guns that he does.
Yeah.
Like trying to do a rifle with the slowest ADS time possible of like 2 seconds. And still managing to win matches with it. And of course, it's to the point where people accuse him of aimbotting, but it's saltiness. You know how it goes. And those, of course, have their entries for both equipment points and weight. But here's the thing that I really like, and that is the fact that we have sample loadouts. Quote, choosing the right equipment can sometimes be time-consuming. Here's a list of pre-built loadouts to help you equip your operative quickly. Of course, you are free to customize these loadouts as you want. And it gives a 10 EP loadout with the cost of each item listed. For example,
I really like this.
For example, the Demolition loadout. Encrypted smartphone, subvocal comlink, both are free. P226 pistol, also free. Bernelli M4 shotgun, 2 EP. 2 breaching charges, 1 EP each. Demolition kit, 1 EP. 5 grenades, 1 1/4 EP. Multi-tool, 1/2. Tactical body armor. Okay, minor typo, but I'll let it pass. 4 EP. And tactical sling, 1/4 EP. And we have a similar thing for the infiltration loadout, the intelligence loadout, the medic loadout, the operator loadout, the recon loadout, the sharpshooter loadout, and the tech loadout. And I know that a Rule 0 version of this project is in the works. There's a small part of me that wonders if there's plans to take the roles that we see here and we saw in character creation and transform that into doing archetypes for that system. And I could see where the temptation would be to use this as the basis for classes, but I'm glad that didn't happen. But then I know I said hacking, but this is technically in the section known as setting rules. Now, setting rules is a thing where you basically have ways to nail down what sort of setting you're building within the Savage Worlds framework. Kind of akin to the campaign qualities thing in FantasyCraft. Which, I appreciate that in Savage Worlds because it's not treating the universal mechanics as if it's a one-size-fits-all, but giving some kind of framework to show where you can and can't go. Because obviously you need to make clear that you couldn't be doing magic-based perks in something like this.
Yeah.
But there are a few from the Savage Worlds core book and the Superpowers Companion. Born a Hero, more skill points, multiple languages, power stunts, and synergy. There is an asterisk that characters start with 14 skill points instead of 15, but get one more core skill. So, let me dig up the... Let me dig up the core book once again, so I can reference what each of these means. So, Born a Hero, you can ignore the rank qualifications for edges during character creation. You must still meet any other requirements as usual. The usual rules for rank requirements apply afterward. And more skill points. As mentioned, that just means you get 15 skill points. Multiple languages, which we kind of hinted at earlier. All characters have the Linguist Edge for free and ignore its usual requirements. A character who actually takes the Linguist Edge knows a number of languages equal to their smarts instead of half their smarts. And the Linguist Edge... So give me a moment. Requires Smarts D6 and the Novice rank. You begin play with half your Smarts die in different language skills of your choice at D6. It's just that in this case, if you got Smarts D6, you're getting 6 language skills at D6 and not 3. And let me see, do I have the... So I do have the Superpowers Companion. Because the other ones... And I do apologize for jumping between the core book and the and the book for Titan Effect, but this is just to clarify on these things. So when it comes to power stunts, this effectively grants a hero a temporary use of any other power as long as it makes sense as an extension of the original ability. A character with super attribute Strength, for example, could make a ranged attack with the Cone template to represent slamming his hands together, or a character with Swinging and a Web Trapping might use his webbing to create a parachute for 3 rounds of flight. The cost is a Benny, which grants a 1-use effect of any instant power, such as an attack, or 3 rounds of any passive power. The number of power points in the temporary power must be equal to or less than the original. So it's basically a way for you to utilize powers in unorthodox ways at a cost. Bennies are a kind of extra effort mechanic when it comes to Savage Worlds. They're called Bennies because originally they were meant to be like poker chips. But any sort of coin or scrap paper or the like will work just as well. And the final one from the Superpowers Companion, Synergy. Let me bring that one. Okay, that's on page 9. If two powers affect the target in the same round, and only the same round, this is comic book combat after all, the Game Master may decide they have synergy. The first power works as normal, the second gains a +2 effect modifier that's added to damage or the active skill roll, or uses a negative modifier in case of powers like resisting, fear, or paralysis. Sometimes powers might create negative synergy as well. If a villain with fiery blasts hits a hero that's just been doused by water, reduce the damage by 2. Or effect for passive powers. So that's the setting rules for this one. But there are two new ones. Demolition and hacking. And
Since you went through all those, I'll go ahead and take this one.
yeah, sorry about that.
It's all good. Alright, so demolition. Explosives can be crucial for a mission's success, cause its failure, or worse. Setting explosives required a successful repair roll and takes 1 minute. A failure means the bomb doesn't explode, explodes too early or too late. A critical failure will immediately detonate the explosive. Explosives like breaching and demolition charges, see the table, are designed to be used by anyone. They do not require any trait roll under normal circumstances. With a success on a roll, the explosive is successfully planted. With the raise, the character can choose one of these 3 effects. Plus 1d6 to the damage, extend the blast template by 1 level, or change it for a cone template. Disarming a bomb or an explosive device requires a repair roll at -2. However, if the task has a time limit, the GM can use a dramatic task instead.
Mm-hmm.
Is that another rule from the Savage Worlds?
Yes. So give me a moment. I will dig that up.
We're digging that up. I'll cover hacking real quick. So each time a character needs to hack a secure network or security system, she must make a hacking roll modified by the appropriate penalties and bonuses. See the below table. The hacker can choose to use hacking instead of thievery to disarm traps and pick electronic locks connected to a network. She needs to access to a computer, desktop or laptop, tablet, or smartphone with the right apps and software. With the success on the roll, the hack succeeds, but leaves a trace at the attempt. Someone looking for entry signs might make a hacking to detect it. With the raise, the hack leaves no trace. So this is a very simplified hacking system.
Yeah.
It's not all that extensive. It's effectively no different than using like pick locks or gather information skills.
Pretty
games
much
like that.
And because
Which is not a big focus of the system, so that is entirely fine.
Yeah. If this were a full-on Cyberpunk game, I could see some people having an issue. But, well, it isn't.
Yeah.
Oh. Now, as far as dramatic tasks, the idea being the heroes make skill rolls to accumulate task tokens to resolve the event before time runs out. First part being the setup, which is going to determine how many task tokens you need and how much time you have. A challenging task, 4 task tokens in 3 rounds. A difficult one, 6 tokens in 4 rounds. A complex one, 8 tokens in 5 rounds. And as far as performing the task, obviously it is a skill roll. And it does require drawing action cards from the action deck, which can mess around with things if need be. Now, with that said, when we have the hacking modifiers table. Sorry, I swear English is my first language. +2 knows the login and password. +1 state-of-the-art hardware and software, or you've got a backdoor. -1 poor quality hardware and software, or altering operations, altering data, changing access, adding new access. -2 civilian security. -4 corporate and most government security. -6 military security. And there's an asterisk of bonuses and penalties are cumulative. So it's a pretty straightforward affair when it comes to the setup. And with that in mind, I know this was a very brief one, but covering both this and psychics next week this week would have created something that was too long. So
yeah, we didn't really have a good way to split this out.
Which sometimes that happens.
entirely
It's
unfair.
happened before.
But it's fine. A short episode now and then is not going to hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm. But what did you think regarding the way gear is handled and the setting rules?
Well, I like the equipment setup because, again, based on how this game works, it's not like some one big grand adventure where you're setting out. Money would make no sense, so I really like the equipment loadout rules here. Some of it I'd have to say, like, as I mentioned, like the amount of gear we have, I'm fine with because this is a supplementary book, so there's a lot more that we don't see in this book you'd have access to. Without much of a basis for how Savage World works, I can at least look at this and go, it's interesting, it's easy to follow. I don't really have any issues of note to bring up so far.
Mm-hmm.
Which is saying a lot, considering some of the stuff we've covered in the past.
Pretty much. And
I think it's actually, if you want to add additional equipment, like you mentioned with the Dragonfire rounds, it'd be very easy to do with this.
yeah. And for the record, when it comes to the way raises work, as a general rule, the TN for any roll is 4. If you get 4 points over that, that's a raise, and every 4 points above that is another raise. And raises essentially do something extra. So because of that, it's pretty straightforward when you tell someone to roll, especially since most of the time you're only going to be using 2 dice. So a minimum roll of 4 is not going to be that much of an issue. It's just if all you get is a 4, you're getting the baseline success. And the exception to this rule is damage, and a few damage and a few other things. But the baseline is always 4. That's why whenever it comes to talking about the die rolling systems in Savage Worlds, the thing I've always said is the number 4 is your friend. Much like how the number 4 is the golfer's favorite number. But
You should play Curse to Golf if you haven't.
I have.
I loved it. So many golf puns. Many bad golf puns.
Let me raise you one with What the Golf.
I've not played that one.
Which is by the same people who did What the Car, which is basically them seeing how far they can stretch things and still have it count as a golf game. And there are some bad puns in that. But when it comes to my take, while there's a few more weapons I might have added personally, that's something that can easily be done. I'm pretty sure if I dig around enough, somebody's added the ones I'd want to anyways, because homebrewing is of course the eternal rabbit hole. Especially with a system like this where it's stupid easy to homebrew.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I'm not that hurt about not having that extensive of a list. It's a simple enough system you can homebrew crap in easy.
Yeah.
I always appreciate things like that.
Although, let me check the pistols for a moment because I want to see something. Specifically on the equivalents. Because I want to... Let me see. Is it there? No, it's not. Okay, I'm just bringing this up just because of the fact that Metal Gear Solid was brought up. Where's the SOCOM? As much of Metal Gear Solid is being worn on the sleeve of this game, you'd think the SOCOM would be in here, or at least the FAMAS. Which just so I'm not pulling things out of my ass. No, the FAMAS isn't here either. It could be I missed it, but I'm not going to say worst game ever just because those aren't in. It's just a bit of fun that I'm having. But I would say with that in mind, the only thing I probably would have added personally is just a bit of a note regarding the setting rules that are from the core book and the Sewer Powers Companion, since early on there was talk of how you could run this without the Sewer Powers Companion, and since a couple of the setting rules do tie into it, I think that's something worth noting. But again, that's in the splitting hairs kind of thing. So with that in mind, that I think is going to do it for this brief episode covering the gear and hacking rules. We'll be back here next week as we get into Psychics and Therianthropes, the two big power sets of the game. And the week after that will be our 3-in-1 break as we go into Bancho Meow Meow.
Which is just fun to say.
Yeah, I'm not going to explain anything more than just the name. You can figure out the rest on your own. You're educated people, I believe. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Thank you.